I have a few comments, not too much in depth. I sort of used the 2005 performance evaluation that I watched from my archives just as a kind of a template, so that since this was the first time I've done a city manager review, I wanted to somewhat be consistent with the past reviews. And before I did that, I wanted to take a look at a couple different things, because first of all, before I was an attorney, I was a regional field training sales manager, and I had to give performance evaluations, and very involved in helping to give people direction and to help them be able to do a better job. And I thought, I think it's interesting and good perspective in looking at the city of Maplewood and looking at the past three managers, yourself included. If you're looking at the full-time city managers, it's my understanding that McGuire was hired on a 3-2 vote, that Fersman was hired at a 3-2 vote, and I believe you were also hired on a 3-2 vote. And so in a Plan B city, it seems, at least here in Maplewood, we have a tradition long-term of that. First of all, the first item that was looked at in the 2005 template was the issue of reliability. And when I look at reliability, I think of it with regard to citizens. Do the citizens feel that there's reliability? Can they rely on you? Can the staff rely on you? Can the council rely on you? And I will tell you that I am out and about talking with citizens in many, many different venues. Not just as my capacity as a mayor, but in my capacity as a lawyer, as involved in other community activities. And I have always heard, that is one thing that has always come through, is that the citizens feel that there is a level of reliability, that when they call you, they talk with you, they work with you, they feel they can rely on you. Staff, I know that there's been the process of building trust with the staff. But I've also had many staff, because I'm a member of the community center, and I've had many staff come up to me and say, thumbs up. Things are going on the positive end. Not everything's worked out, but it's going forward. Reliability. I'm listening to the various different reviews here that each council person has given you, and I haven't heard one of them say that they didn't think that you weren't reliable. And so while everybody here may have different opinion about one way or the other about the communication skills, I think that I didn't hear anything about that you're not reliable. And I think that people do realize that you have a dedication and a commitment. And when I used to be a manager giving reviews, we had a scale rating process as well. However, 5s were always the best score. So unfortunately, I have my scores absolutely in a different perspective than the scale that Mr. Rosbach was using, so I don't want there to be any confusion. So that when I give a higher score, that means a more positive score, and that a 1 is the lowest score. Because typically when I was a manager, that was the way that we did it. And it doesn't make any difference. It's just so that we have an understanding of that. And I would say when it comes to reliability and looking at all aspects of whether or not citizens, staff, or council, I think you're right around a 4.5 to a 5. I think that I haven't run across anybody who says that you're not reliable. The next issue is good use of time. I think that this is very important. There is so much work to be done that a good use of time is critical. I do know that you're a very detail-oriented person. I'm a detail-oriented person. I have to struggle every day with understanding that I can't get bogged down in the details. So I would pass along that, is that don't get bogged down in the details and find out that you haven't been able to accomplish as much as you need to get done. And so if we're looking at the good use of time criteria, looking at the scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, I would say we're probably around a 4. So when it's looking at that productivity, again, that goes to use of time, but also the volume of work. I believe that the volume of work that you accomplish is tremendous. I believe that in order to accomplish that volume of work and that productivity that you need to do, that you stay longer hours and that you work longer hours than anybody else does. And so then there's the concern about whether or not if you give up too much of your personal life to give it all to the city. And I'm thinking and hoping that if you can maybe manage the time a little bit better and not be so bogged down in the details, you won't have to be here till 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, because everybody around City Hall does know what your van looks like, and they do know you're here. If the van's in the parking lot, you're here working. So I would say, you know, with that productivity, I think your productivity, I think it's about a 4.5, but it's of giving, staying more time, and that if you can maybe try to work on that. With regard to problem solving, I think you do look at a lot of different issues and how to approach them from different angles. Not just one prescribed way that you look at it, but from many different solution points. Some of those ideas are, well, maybe not the best idea, but that's the whole point of brainstorming with your staff, is coming up with different ideas, trying to see what's working. And the team, I've heard that many of the staff people say, everybody gets together, they're starting to do more brainstorming, team building, looking at this. I think the problem solving that I see, I think it's, you know, I think it's a, you know, 4.5. I think it's on target. With regard to professionalism, and again, keep in mind, this is just the template that I took from the 2005 review, that with professionalism, that was looking at knowledge in the field, group discussions, initiative improves the organization and stays current. I think generally speaking, all of that is fairly right in the area that you'd want to be. You know, I would say as overall, I would say 4. One thing that I would like you to do if you have the time, which I think you might if you manage your time a little better, is that you'll be able to finish your advanced degree. Because I know that you're not that far from it, and just a couple other classes, and I'm sure they can give you some extra credit for what you're doing here. I'll just write a couple papers and finish that up, and then you'll be able to say that you've got that accomplished for the next year. With regard to coaching and mentoring, I think that of all the things, this is probably the one area that you probably need to work the most on. So, and I would say that that's probably about a 3 or 3.5. Working with mentoring and finding ways of how to mentor people and to, I think you're good at finding out what their strengths are and pushing them in that direction and getting them to go for it. But on the other hand, to mentor them so that they can maybe do more with their skills that they've got. And then with regard to staff being energized and empowered, again, I've heard a lot of very positive things with that regard. So I guess it just all depends on who's approaching you and who's talking to you. So that's what I can say. But if I'm looking at from my perspectives, what are my goals? I mean, that's because obviously you're our employee, and so, you know, maybe each of us have different goals. I think most people know what my goals are. My goals, of course, are citizen outreach, code enforcement, openness in government, finding efficiencies so that we can do better in the way that we spend our tax dollars, and working with our initiatives for the environment, and holding down spending. And I would say of all those, I think, you know, we're doing pretty good. We're moving on track. But I know that I think that I'm probably the most, the one that's on the council here who feels that we could be doing even less spending. So I know everyone here, if we look at the votes, there's probably a lot more spending going on here than if I had my way, I'd be spending even less. So those are kind of the comments that I have. And so I hope that in looking, and I think that Ms. Juneman's and Mr. Rossbach's comments about finding other ways of being able to communicate, people who have a different way of communicating, but finding that common ground of communicating with them, I think is always a positive thing. So if what you're hearing here is that some people feel that they're on a wavelength of communication with you, that obviously sounds like that's working, and for the other ones, well, sounds like a communication is the thing to work on. So.
Very good.
Okay, very good, thank you.